What is going on, my faithful YouTube viewers? It's only been like maybe a week and a half since I filmed my last video. It feels like too long though. I just couldn't stay away. Plus, obviously this camera here loves me. So normally I'm right here at this red dot, but right now I'm over here in Omaha at this red dot at my folks' place for Christmas. Living it up, taking a little bit of a break from the reseller life, but like I said, I couldn't stay away from the camera. So because of that, today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 10 mistakes, either that I have made in my personal reseller business or that I see other resellers making all the time, and I'm gonna tell you guys how to avoid them. So let's hop into that, shall we? The number one mistake that I see people making all the time, and I fall into this trap myself very often, is sourcing when you should be listing. Everybody knows that for resellers, the fun part is going out to Goodwill or garage sales or pawn shops or wherever the heck you like to get inventory and getting on that thrill of the hunt. It's so addicting for treasure hunters like us, but we also all know that we make our money when we sell, not necessarily when we buy. And I know that there's an expression that is like, you make your money when you buy, meaning that you have to always be looking out for good deals. I get that, but if you're constantly buying and never listing stuff, you're going to run into trouble and revenue and cash flow problems very quickly. One of my favorite truisms of one of my mentors is that systems create behaviors. So with a problem like this, if you can implement some sort of a system for yourself that forces you to list, either like before you go out sourcing, or maybe you set up some sort of a reward system for any number of listings that you get done. One thing that I like to do in my business is, especially if I'm buying like a large lot of stuff, I will force myself to send it all off to Amazon or get it all listed on eBay before I can make my next large purchase. And that really lights a fire under me to get it done quicker. Mistake number two that I see happening a lot is wanting to buy deals that you really probably shouldn't. This often happens if maybe you've been reselling for a little bit, cash flow starts to become less of a problem, you have a little bit more money in the bank, and a deal comes along that you know you have the money for, and you know it's at least somewhat underpriced, so your instinct is always to buy it. This is a dangerous instinct to have because there are all kinds of factors that can make a deal not the right one for you. Maybe it's inventory that doesn't really fit with your store or your specific niche well, and so it's just going to sit for a while before you list it. Maybe it's a kind of item that just is a pain to list, so you know you're gonna put it off for a while. Maybe it's a lot of items that is just really slow sellers, so even if you do get it all listed quickly, it's gonna take a while to get that money back. Or maybe it's even a bundle of stuff that just is made up of a ton of little tiny pieces that you can get listed and you know will sell, but it will just take a bunch of time. So one of the approaches that I like to take when I'm considering a deal is asking myself a few questions. One is, how long will it take me to list it? And also, how long will it take the stuff to sell? I think smart business people are always asking the question about what is the time that you're going to have to invest in order to get a given return, and I highly recommend that in these situations. Mistake number three, shipping dimensions. I bet there is not a single reseller watching this video who has not at some point messed up on shipping dimensions. If you are one and you've never gotten that wrong, definitely leave me a comment, prove me wrong, I'll pin it or something. But this can go wrong in a couple ways. One is if you overestimate how big a package is going to be, oftentimes, especially if you're charging shipping, it will sit forever because someone's going to think that they have to pay a lot more for shipping than they actually do. This just happened to me just the other week. For some reason, I was selling a jacket and I had one of the package dimensions marked as 28 inches. It had been sitting in my store for like the better part of a year before somebody messaged me and was like, whoa, this is saying it's going to cost $50 to ship this to Kansas from Kentucky. That doesn't seem quite right. And I was like, oh shoot, my shipping dimensions were wrong. I fixed it, they bought it, it was a happy ending. But if they hadn't messaged me, who knows how long that would have gone, just sitting as dead weight in my store that no one's going to buy. And on the flip side, I think this is maybe even more common, is you can sometimes underestimate the weight or the dimensions of a package. You charge a certain amount for shipping, it ends up being a good amount more, and then you end up losing a lot more money than you expected, or maybe losing money on the product as a whole because of that shipping mistake. And to be fair, I don't know if I really have any hack or special tip to avoid these errors except for paying more attention. It's something that I have definitely gotten better at over time, and that I think will be the case for you guys as well. But if you guys have any tips for remembering to correctly input shipping details, definitely let me know below. Tip number 5 is having too wide of a focus. What I mean by that is you pull up to a yard sale or a thrift store and you just start pulling and looking up and buying anything and everything, and that's pretty much your strategy no matter where you go. And while I think curiosity and constant learning is absolutely crucial for resellers, once you have been doing it for a little bit, I think it's really helpful to hone in on 1 or 2 specific niches that you can learn really well. And that can be anything you want. It could be clothing or antique trains or high-end watches, but gaining a certain level of expertise in a niche will help tremendously in the long run when you're looking to scale your business. It helps in a couple ways in that, 1, people will start to know you as the high-end watch person, for example, and it'll help you build connections and do more deals more often. And also, when you know exactly what kind of product you like to buy, it will help you zero in on the methods of sourcing that work best for you. Tip number 5 is having too narrow of a focus in your reselling business. And I know what you're saying right now, Caleb, pick a side. You just told me not to go too wide. Now I need to not go too narrow. But you have to keep both things in mind, because if you have it in your head that all you want to resell is He-Man collectibles, you know you're probably going to be going to a lot of garage sales and thrift stores that have other kinds of valuable toys and collectibles that you're walking right by that in reality is easy money. And if you just took a little bit of time to do the research in the surrounding categories, you could make a lot more with not much more effort. I think the best antidote to a focus that is too narrow or too wide was put well by my friend Chase from Chase After the Right Price. He says, learn the low-hanging fruit in as many niches as you possibly can. And this doesn't mean specialize in every single niche out there. It just means that every niche has certain items that are just easy to identify. Like, a lot of people know Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff that especially is vintage is usually worth decent money, and it's worth looking up. And the more of those little tips and parameters that you can have up there in your noggin, the better off you're going to be when you're trying to make quick work of a yard sale or a thrift store. And I think the best way of getting more and more of those into your head is just watching more content. I think we resellers have it so lucky that we have access to the amount of free knowledge on YouTube that we do. So anytime that I am like packing up orders, I'm shipping stuff out, I'm getting stuff organized, I love to tune into other resale channels and continue sharpening myself and learning more and more of that low-hanging fruit so that I can make more money when I'm out at the sales. All right, mistake number 6. I know that there are people out there that are guilty of this one, because I definitely am. It is getting distracted. As self-employed people, we are in charge of our own workspace, our own work schedule, our work habits, and it can be very easy, especially when you do have that YouTube video going on in the background, or you've got your phone buzzing in your pocket, to just take some unanticipated breaks. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to post some witty TikTok and I open up the app, look up 20 minutes later, realize I haven't posted anything. I've just been scrolling through the darn thing. And whenever I find myself getting distracted on YouTube or TikTok or whatever your social media or distraction of choice is, I've found really the only solution is just to shut it down. I'll close out of YouTube, I'll put my phone somewhere else and just crank out the shipping that I need to do. Maybe I'll turn on like a podcast or some music or something like that that I know really isn't going to take my attention away from what I'm doing. I've been thinking more and more recently about just how much time I spend every day distracted and what that adds up to in terms of like days or weeks or months of my life that I could be getting productive stuff done, or even just doing things that I enjoy even more. I think if I knew those figures, it might be pretty devastating. So I've been trying to focus more on creating systems and environments that are best for productivity in my personal personal work life. All right, I am rambling a little bit longer than I expected in this video, so I do apologize for that. Do me a favor, guys. Normally these kinds of informational, educational videos really don't do all that well in terms of views. So if you do like seeing content like this, please do let me know. I want to get a better feel for whether people like more entertaining or more educational kinds of videos on this channel. I'm always going to do both, but any feedback that you guys have for me on that would be great. And of course, liking and subscribing to the channel helps a ton to sort of signal to me that this is a good video as well. And you can hit the notification bell if you want to know when I upload, and especially when I go live too, because I do that, try to do that every like couple weeks or so. And if you want to be part of those lives, then you can definitely do that by smacking that little bell. All right, mistake number 7. All right, mistake number 7 is having disorganized inventory. This is one that has come back to bite me multiple times. I have an inventory system that honestly doesn't give me a ton of issues. I don't have like the labeled bins and stuff that a lot of resellers do, which is honestly probably what I'd recommend because it seems like most of the smartest people out there do it that way. I usually only have about 150 to 200 items in my eBay store at any given time because most of my stuff is at Amazon. So I just organize mine according to like category, like I have all my shoes in one place and electronics in another. But even that system for me has gotten a little bit sloppy recently. There's been a little bit of overlap, and I've found that I've had to spend a lot more time looking for orders when people do buy them, and that's just not efficient for business. So one thing I'm gonna have to do in the near future here is go back into my sheds, reorganize stuff so that I can tell at a glance where stuff is going to be. The absolute worst outcome of having disorganized inventory is when sometimes you just can't even find something that sells and you have to go into eBay and you have to cancel an order. And if you're gonna be honest, you have to say this order was canceled because it was out of stock, and that reflects very poorly in your seller metrics and will usually result in lower sales. And that's the case both on eBay or also if you are merchant fulfilling on Amazon. So please take the example of people who are smarter than me, get a nice organized labeled bin system or something similar so that you don't put yourself in that situation. Mistake number 8 is getting into sourcing ruts. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you have your like 4 or 5 thrift stores that you really like to go to, or maybe you resign yourself to just doing yard sales every Saturday. And if you're going through your regular routine and your business is absolutely crushing it, by all means, like stick in that rut. That's not a bad thing. But if you've found that purchases and sales are starting to slip a little bit, your inventory is going kind of stale, I highly recommend finding new avenues of sourcing. Switching it up a little bit can be huge in terms of understanding the opportunity that is really out there for whatever your niche might be. So for example, early on in my resale career, I was focused mostly on books, and I realized that there was more and more competition coming in for those thrift store books to sell on Amazon. So I had to switch up my game plan a little bit, and that's when I started experimenting just a little bit with pawn shops. And as I did it more and more in my area, I realized just how much opportunity that there was there, but there was much less competition than there was at the thrift stores. So if you find yourself in a similar situation to where I was, I would highly recommend mixing it up a little bit. Maybe you go to like Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp, or you try out pawn shops like I did, or maybe you start going to storage auctions. And even if you're not like buying lockers or units, you maybe network with people there and let them know, hey, this is what I do. If you ever want to get rid of stuff quick for cash, here's my number, here's my card. There are all kinds of avenues for getting inventory as a reseller, and knowing as many of them as possible in your area can be absolutely crucial. Number 9 is a way that we have probably all sabotaged ourselves psychologically, and that is comparison. Folks, Instagram, YouTube, whatever your social media might be, it's going to be full of people's highlight reels and best moments and curated versions of themselves. My channel is no exception, folks. While I do try to be very honest about the stuff that is going wrong in my business, or when like I mess something up and sell something for too cheap or whatever, the fact is the day-to-day grind of resale just doesn't make all that great of videos. It doesn't make great pictures on Instagram or tweets on Twitter. One of my favorite quotes related to this is, don't ever compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. It's just not fair to yourself, folks. And when I was just starting out especially, it was really hard not to. It's hard to be able to look at someone on your right and on your left, especially if it's someone that you consider similar to you, who you think is doing a lot better and to still be okay with it. And I'm certainly no pastor, I'm no therapist. I can't tell you all that much about that, but what I can tell you is that having the self-awareness to know how you're being affected by the kinds of media you consume and the discipline to put it aside if you need to can be an absolute game changer. So I would highly encourage curating very carefully the kinds of videos or posts or whatever that you're exposing yourself to. I know one thing that I've done is there are certain people that I have followed who do provide really solid value, but I find myself constantly comparing myself to. I'll just turn off those kinds of posts or videos from my feed, not because I don't think that they're good and valuable pieces of content, but because I don't have the security and maturity to internalize that well. And finally, folks, on a bit of a lighter note, mistake number 10 is spending all of your profits. Folks, especially early on in your business, I don't care if you're part-time, if you're full-time, if you're dabbling, you need to be in lean startup mode. What I mean by this is early on, you need to be laser focused on taking as little money out of the business as humanly possible. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for small rewards and celebrations along the way, but if every time you sell a high dollar item, you're taking that profit and you're buying some like fancy new shirt or a first edition Pokemon card for your collection, it's going to be just that much harder to actually grow your business in ways that it desperately needs to grow early on. One of Warren Buffett's top 10 rules for business is reinvest your profits. Most commonly for resellers, this just takes the form of buying more inventory to flip and keeping the cycle going. But sometimes it can also take the form of maybe buying a new software that's going to make you more efficient, or buying new tools like maybe a Dymo label printer, or a box resizer, or storage shelves that's going to make your process of pulling orders more efficient. Anything that you can do, any dollar that you can put back into your business that's going to make you more efficient or faster or more effective at what you do is going to pay big dividends in the long run. A couple big things that I reinvested in personally this year were, one, my second shed that ended up costing me around like $1,500, but was worth every penny because now I have that much more room to store inventory and I can buy bigger deals if I need to. I also ended up spending way more money than I expected on a new computer. The old one that I had had such an old processor that I couldn't even edit videos, so I got a nice new one, and I fronted a lot more cash because I want it to be one that I can use going into the future for like 8 or 10 years without having to worry about upgrading again. But anyways, all that said, folks, early on in your business, live like a college student, eat ramen noodles, reinvest all your profits. That's it for that one. Anyway, folks, I think I've rambled at you enough for today. Thank you for those of you who have stuck with this video this long. Really appreciate you guys. If you particularly connected with any of the mistakes that I've mentioned in this video, I would love to hear about that in the comments. And also, if there was something you were expecting me to say, a mistake that you think is really common that I actually missed, I would love to hear those as well. I've got some more big stuff planned and coming up on this channel, so definitely keep an eye out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm gonna have to find something to flip around here. Candy. I will catch you guys on the flip.